Welcome to Behind the Play, a video and podcast product of The Hoop Show that explores the lives of Geelong players, past and present, as well as the off-field figures that are keeping us Geelong strong. My name is Paul James, and today we've got someone from the other side of the fence, the opposition. And it's always great to have different voices and perspectives on all things footy. We don't get caught up in our Geelong echo chamber here. Daz, how's things, mate?
Mate, I'm well, thank you. And I know the other side of the fence might be daunting for some, but I'm going to put your mind at ease, Geelong fans. I was at 3 of the Kennett Curse games that didn't include the prelims. So I've been through the other side of the fence pain, and I promise I won't go too hard. But I'm looking forward to this, mate. I'm always keen to collaborate and talk some footy, so I'm looking forward to it in a big way.
It was always one of those interesting ones through the whole Kennett Curse period that obviously, there was so much media about it, and I got it. But the reality of the situation, if you're a Cats fan, is a disappointing one, where we won all these games in the middle, sure, but it was bookmarked by a Hawthorn premiership. Bookended, I should say. Bookended by a Hawthorn premiership and a Hawthorn premiership, essentially. Like, they played their grand final in that prelim against us. So, not to be too dismissive of the opposition the next week, but that was obviously their grand. I feel like there's a pretty strong and I think reasonably based theory that getting through that Geelong prelim was what Hawthorn needed to ensure they won the flag. Like, by doing that, there was no team that was going to get in their way.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And there's even Hawthorn books that have come out during that time that have basically said that. Clarko in 2011, blamed a freakish couple of acts with Luke Ball, and then the Daisy Thomas tackle on Cyril that doesn't get talked about enough, unless it's Daisy himself, of course. And we love the great man, which is great. But yeah, it just seemed like the one barrier in the way wasn't actually a cup. It was just these blue and white hooped, let's be honest, pricks at the time for Hawthorn
I could
fans.
understand the perspective.
And 15-year-old Daz, when Josh Caddy put through that goal to put you 20 up in the last quarter, geez, I came out with there was some language that night that would have put the devil to shame, I think. And then it was just a magnificent ride home. And, it's probably a hot take in terms of Hawthorn fan, but that's still probably my favourite game of all time. I'll watch it probably once a year. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I distinctly remember going to that prelim. I was bringing one of my colleagues from work. From work at the time. He was from Canada. It was actually his first year in the country. Had taken him to a few games over the course of the year. Like, mate, I've got no way to get you into the grand final, but I can get you into a prelim. I'm an MCC member, so I just kind of wheeled out a guest pass and got him in. But it's like, this is the best I can do for you. But we've got the wood over this mob. It just keeps happening. I don't know how or why, but it just keeps happening. So congratulate, you get to see a prelim, you get to celebrate, and I mean, it felt pretty good for three quarters of the game. I mean, I guess as it always kind of did against Hawthorn, even when we won through that period, it was like, okay, yeah, we're doing all right, we're going fine, and then we'd let you back in, even if we then reclaimed the lead again, we'd let you back in, and it would always become that tight contest. So, and then I just. Look, I hate to hang it on him because he's done so many great things, including in the 2011 grand final, but Travis Varco having a shot with, about 30 seconds to go, and missing an absolute soda. And
it would be remiss of me to say that miss probably does happen with the pressure, but Brad Sewell gets across and has one of the almightiest fresh air smothers that you've ever seen. He got nowhere near the pill, the man that they call Pretzel, at the Hawks, but it was that just enough that doesn't go in the stats. But Varco would have seen him out the corner of his eye, and it's just the little things that happened. But it was one of those games that was just remarkable. I mean, the last goal was with 7 minutes to go, of course, with the infamous Sean Burgoyne running into goal, and we're all expecting, and I was expecting the heartbreak because it had happened the 11 times previous. Why wouldn't it?
And there was so much time left to be able to do it too. So,
yeah, exactly right. But yeah, I think many Hawthorn fans started believing in the footy gods then.
Is it crazy to think that was 10 years ago?
Yeah, it's not okay.
We're old pricks. I don't know. Anyway, so let's dive into you and the love of the game. We'll talk about the Hawks a little bit more again shortly and how you feel like things are travelling as well. But where did this love of the game come from in the first place? So before we even jump into Daz Talks Footy and all the content and those sort of things, where did footy first enter your life? Were you one of those that was kind of born with a footy in your hand, or did it come a bit later?
No, born with a footy in hand. I really hope my old man never listens to this because I'm going to talk him up here. But For everyone that I've met, seen around the Ringwood area here in Victoria, will lay claim that my old man was a very, very good footballer and cricketer. But we're not on a cricket podcast, so I'll only talk
Feel
him
free to
up
talk him up in there. That's all right.
half the way. But an incredibly gifted sportsman. Did some trials for, I think it was Essendon and North's under 19s teams, and just it didn't go further than that. I think he maybe tried to bring that dream to his kids that did not possess the same level of ability.
Yeah.
And I'm still sorry for that, Dad. But yeah, went down first memory is went to Auskick. My dad bet my mum that if they had a daughter first, they'd be a pie to join mum, and if it was a son, to join dad as a hawk. My older brother was born.
Jeez, you were really screwed either way, weren't you? It was Collingwood or Hawthorn. You had no chance.
Well, my older brother got Hawthorn, and then yeah, mum got pregnant again, and mum went, well, no matter what, I'm going to get
the wreck on this one.
Yeah, the Collingwood fan, and my dad went, if you say so, and then yeah, I don't remember when it flipped, but it was around the age of 5 where I went in a Collingwood jumper, which this could be considered child abuse, but I got put in a Collingwood jumper and sent to Waverley with my dad to Hawthorn training, and
sorry, Collingwood jumper, Hawthorn training, right? Okay.
Yeah, and before we even got to the ground, even at 5 years old, I knew this was a bad idea. Internally, I knew it was a bad idea. But we get out, and Waverley, as you walk through in between the grandstand and sort of the car park, there was a little food works there.
Yep.
And just next to that was a side door to the training centre. It used to be the players' way to sort of escape the media.
Yeah.
Not that there was media there at the time, but anyway, the door swings open, and I just hear my brother yell, "Croft!" And Shane Crawford's superstar, and we love Crawford.
At the time, it would have been right near the peak of his powers.
Yeah, absolutely. And he came over and had a chat. My dad had a chat to him, and he kind of looks down, notices the Collingwood jumper, and he goes, I don't think this is the team you barrack for, is it, mate? And I went, and I just kind of went, nope. And I don't know why you're talking to me, to be honest. I didn't say that out loud, but that was the thought. And he went, can I tell you a secret? And I went, yeah. I went, yeah, okay. And then he leant down really close and he goes, don't tell anyone, but I actually barrack for Collingwood as well. You can't tell anyone, though. It's our secret. And I fell in love with him. Fell in love with Croft then, because that was an amazing thing to do, to put a very, very nervous, introverted kid at ease.
Do we know, was Croft actually a Collingwood? Like, was he a Collingwood supporter before he was picked up? Was that kind of the genesis of that?
No, he was Richmond as a kid in his autobiography, which I've read a couple of times. But he could probably just tell that I was shy, introverted, and not saying much. And he that magnificent fan interaction. And I went home, pretty much ran through my front door, told my mum that Croft barracks for Collingwood, and because of that, I now had to barrack for Hawthorn to celebrate Croft. How that logic applies, I've got no idea.
He reverse psychology the shit out of you.
Exactly right, but it's worked beautifully. 4 flags versus 1 later. Croft made me make the right choice, which was very kind of him.
After all these footy show antics, people used to call Crawford dumbass, but I think he's actually shown he's a total genius. But
the master manipulator at work.
So yeah, and actually, I guess similar sort of story for us when it comes to kind of I guess elders in the family being pretty talented with a ball in hand. Dad was playing high level cricket, much like yours, and my granddad played for Geelong. So, and I didn't adopt either properly. So here we are. But so I guess kind of fascinating that we kind of walked similar-ish sort of walks in that space, and then come to be rivals when it comes to the teams that we support. So as you got more and more exposure, you obviously jumped ship to Hawthorn at that point. Was it almost instantaneous, or was there a bit of a tug of war on the parents' side to try and
Mum still hasn't forgiven me.
Yeah,
at all, and that's okay. And 2010, so 08 happened, and I was 10 years old, and as footy nuffy as I was as a kid, the 07 semi-final against North Melbourne was the first time I had sporting heartbreak.
Yep.
I didn't really understand why it hurt so much, but I think it was just the fact that I wasn't going to see Hawthorn play again that year, because when you're 9 years old, 6 months feels like a decade and a half.
Absolute eternity.
So yeah, absolutely. So that was the sadness. And then I got given a book of grand finals, which was literally the history of grand finals from 1897 to 2004. And I just read, because I was a bookworm back then.
6 months, Phil.
Still am now. Yeah, exactly. Just started learning about the game, and you're looking at scores of 18 versus 11 in the first ever grand final was 1 goal, 8 to 8 behinds, and and we talk about not good scoring now, but as we kind of got into the Hawthorn chapters, because we were so dominant throughout the 70s and 80s, it filled obviously a lot of the grand final pages. And I went, wow, it would be really cool to go through, what fans at the time went through. So then when '08 happened, it was just genuine pandemonium. My brother and I had worn Hawthorn jumpers the entire day. We went and kicked the footy because we were at the caravan site, our permanent one that we had in Gippsland, Victoria. And I reckon it would have been a 6-hour session post grand final of doing everything. I was the same and still am the same body build as Stuart Dew back then.
Yeah.
And I was convinced I was going to teach myself how to kick on the left foot. Never happened, but I gave it a crack. And it was fantastic. And there might have been some abuse to the beautiful Geelong couple just down the sort of road there, which was all well-natured, hopefully. And,
I'm sure they really appreciated it.
And then, absolutely at the time, you dickhead kids. And we were, and that's fine. But, from there, mate, the footy addiction started, and I don't think it's ever going to go away.
Now, I mean, since this is a Geelong show, I'll indulge you a little bit further on in the '08 side of it, because obviously it's a heartbreaking topic for myself and probably many who are listening today. But I guess, what were you thinking going into that day? Obviously a lot younger at the time, but the Hawks are there. They've got a crack at it, and they were obviously considered the underdogs going into the game. Did you feel the same leading into it?
Yeah, no chance. Absolutely no chance. So in the caravan site that we were staying at, we stayed there, and so did some other family friends.
Yeah.
Further down the road, they introduced us to the site, and they brought out this little pocket book. And it wasn't we weren't betting, but we had to pick the winner, the margin, the Norm Smith medalist, first goal, and there was something else in there because I remembered that they were numbered 1 to 5.
Yeah.
And only one person out of the 12, and 6 of us were Hawthorn fans, that picked Hawthorn to win the game, and it was my mum, who is Collingwood. Yeah, exactly.
Had the neutral perspective. She had the neutral eye for it.
Exactly. We had, and we were just like, we had no chance. And I figured if we were going to win the game, great. And if we weren't, I could still try to win the tipping thing because Dad had promised me
win-win at that point.
Yeah, Dad had offered me $5, which back in 2008 felt like Bitcoin. So I was ready to go, and I remember, guys had only lost one game that year, which was to Collingwood.
It was an absolute hiding too.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mum was very happy about that, being like, well, you guys need to learn how to beat them. We already have. If you need any tips, but Collingwood didn't make the 8 that year, but I remember during the celebrations as well, there was one person celebrating more than anyone in the family was, and that was my mum, who put as the multi, I swear this is true, Hawthorn to win, over 24.5 points, and Luke Hodges the Norm Smith.
I mean, probably would have paid her right, I'm sure.
About $250.
That's all right. Not too bad.
So it turns out that Mum was more excited than we were, which is extraordinarily good of her. But yeah,
she'll just say that she was excited for her kids and it was a great day for them, but really she's pocketing a stack of cash.
At the time, yeah, she was like, I'm just so happy for him, And then once we sort of figured out what gambling was, she sat down and told us that story, which was quite amusing. But yeah, I often think, would I be as big a footy fan if we didn't win that day? I'm just glad we did at the end of the day, which is pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a bit of a stinker for myself, and again, most of the people that are watching now or listening now, it was a weird sort of a day. Obviously, there's a lot that's been said about Geelong's accuracy on the day. Cam Mooney cops a lot of that still to this day on a lot of his televised stuff for some of his wayward kicking on the day. The thing that, and I'm more than happy to debate or discuss a little bit further. There was a certain rule that came in that was introduced in the competition immediately off the back of that game.
Yeah, you can say it. Brent Guerra was potting them from 40 out the wrong way. That's fine. I can live with it.
Yeah,
it's
the rush behind rule that obviously is still often discussed today was actually born off the back of that grand final. Now, I think there's a lot of people who say it's that game and that game alone, especially I think if you're a Geelong fan, because again, there's probably that frustration directed at it. Let's be real, it was going on all year. Joel Bowden was in fact the biggest
that was the bloke
culprit.
that I was going to bring up. He won that game against Brisbane, didn't he? Where he just played on, waited for whoever it was to come at him, and he just took 2 steps over the line. But
now, I do wonder whether it would have actually would have come into play had it not affected a grand final. I think I mean, there's always the conversation. What if this happened in a grand final? We used to hear about it all the time when it came to the televised stuff and referring decisions, all that sort of stuff. It was always, what if it affects a grand final? And again, I mean, a Geelong thing again, the same sort of thing happened in '09 when Tom Hawkins grazed the post there. didn't hit the Grays post. It was all an optical
He smacked
illusion.
the post.
But yeah, it was, it was all that, like, those sorts of conversations are the things that tend to fuel it. So I always wonder what would have happened had it not happened, like had that not been. And I don't mean necessarily the result, but the fact that it was am I being too harsh to say exploited?
No, I'm with you. No, 100%. It was in the rules. It was part of the plan. And I've met and spoken to Clinton Young. I've been lucky enough to have a good conversation with Youngie, and it was part of the plan. It was, we're going to expose, the sun was out. It was a reasonably warm day. You didn't pick David Wojcinski for some reason. Mark Thompson didn't pick him. So we felt like we could get you for pace with ball in hand. So it would just rush the ball through, get it to the fat side. And Clinton Young had the Norm Smith medal at halftime. And if he didn't get hurt, he'd still be a part of footy folklore now, even more than he is. And fortunately, Hodgie was able to nick it off him, if we're being honest, and get the multi up, which was extraordinary. I didn't actually thank Clinton for that, but I think I might have to now on behalf of Mum.
Yeah, it's a strange old day anyway, but certainly a good one for Hawks supporters, and obviously, as a lot of people say, kind of popped up a little bit before their time, but it was, I think, the thing that really put the team on the radar. I mean, obviously Buddy had been doing a pretty good job of it all year, kicking 100, but really kind of asserting to the competition, like, this is a team to look out for. And despite what happened the following year, premiership hangover, and a little bit slower to kind of get going again off the back of that, I think everyone kind of knew that at some point they were going to be back. Like, those bodies were going to mature as much as they ever could, and they were going to really attack. And ultimately that happened. So what was the three-peat like for you as such a shock with 2008, but then to deliver in such a way in 13, 14, 15?
Well, one of the worst things that you do when you have these sort of chats is answer a question with a question, but unfortunately I'm going to have to do that in this scenario. So 2012, and you've alluded to 208 for you, is still to this day, it hurts more, 2012 hurts more than I was happy about any of the four flags. Where do you sit in terms of, does 08 hurt more than the happiness that you got individually from 7, 9, 11 and last year? Or is this just Daz needs therapy? Is that the
no? It is one of those weird ones. I mean, I guess it's really hard to kind of. I think, like, there's a psychological thing that happens all the time, and this is, I mean, for us, even in content creation, those sort of things, like a negative comment like, you can get a sea of positivity, but you cop a negative comment and it sticks with you. And I think it's a very similar sort of thing that, I mean, you hear players talk about it all the time. Like, we had all these successes, and I hear Geelong, players of the day talk about it. We had all these successes. It's amazing. It's the best thing ever. But you know what sits in my head still? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
And so, like, even as a supporter, I feel like that's there. I don't know if it necessarily outweighs it, but I guess I didn't have the same level of investment as someone who was, on the field that day competing does.
Yeah,
especially with so many of the what ifs and. I referenced Cam Mooney before, but I can't imagine what was going through his head with some of the horrible missed shots that he had on the day, and you would take on a lot of the responsibility for that loss, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He did a fantastic pod with Brad Sewell and Ben Dixon back when Crown Bet was still a thing.
Yep.
Before they merged with something Hill. I don't remember what it was, the old betting. Anyway, that's not important. Where he spoke really, really candidly about how he felt and that he wanted to have a punch on at halftime, and in doing so forgot how to kick a footy, and that was really eye-opening as a Hawthorn fan. But to answer the three-peat question, and I wonder if 09 was the same for you guys, although that was a much better quality of game than 13 was. But it was kind of like an evening, a cancelling out at the time. It was like we lost the unlosable, which, to be honest, was the same with you guys, probably more so in 08. And it was like, this should have been last year, but we got this one. And then 2014 came and, Bud had left. We talked about off air. There were even some pundits saying that Hawthorn couldn't make finals, let alone win the flag without Bud. Obviously played Bud in that game, and he was Sydney's best player.
Yeah, he had a great game.
I've watched it that many times, that 14 flag. It's not funny. And he was definitely their best player. And that was euphoria as a Hawthorn fan. And then 2015 comes along. And to be honest, that was probably the one I was most nervous for, because, and it wasn't, the back-to-back-to-back, but it was, well, we had the fluke, as it was called, not my term, but we had the fluke of 08, the redemption of 13, solidified the legacy really with 14. And it was like, if we do lose 15, you lose 15 and you lose 12, you probably think you've left one or two out on the park. I remember Dennis Pagan saying that, 98, when North kicked 2-11 in that second quarter, made him always feel, even now, that he should have won one more at North, whether it was 98 or another one. They got to the prelim in 2000 and then things fell away, as we know. So going into 15, it was the one that I felt like, oh, I actually think we need to win this for reasons bigger than a flag. And then, Jack Darling unfortunately hit himself in the face with the sun in his eyes in that third quarter, and then the Eagles didn't really come close, and that was an extraordinary day. And then we got to 2016, and the Isaac Smith, being the traitor that he was against your mob, that would have made up.
Well, he already knew at that point, right?
A few times,
yeah, absolutely. Smile. Yeah, it's because I'm gonna miss this.
Yeah, no.
Shame he didn't take advantage of it the next week, I guess. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. And
that was Sydney the following week, and we blew it up in the first quarter.
Yeah, I was an apprentice at the time, and we were closing down the kitchen, and it was my job as what was I about? I think it was a third-year apprentice, but I was a bit knackered, and I said to the guys, I'll run it over to the compactor, but really it was just so I could listen to the end of it. Yeah. Either Triple M's call or whatever it was. And as I got to the compactor, someone else was there, just doing their thing from a different restaurant. And as I flicked Triple M on, I still remember the first thing I heard was Isaac Smith after the siren to win the game. And I nearly dropped. Yeah, and I didn't know the score. Obviously, busy restaurant. I'm not checking my phone whilst dinner service is going on at the time.
You value keeping your job.
Yeah, exactly right. Mum and Dad are going, oh, we let you quit school. How's it going? Well, I got sacked because I wanted to watch the footy. Probably wouldn't have gone down too well, but that was the first thing I heard, and I went, shit, this is real. And then he missed it. And I remember walking back in because I knew we were playing the Bulldogs, because they had that infamous win over the Crows. No, I'm getting my days wrong. The Dogs had beaten West Coast, over in Perth.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. The Bulldogs-Crows game was the year before. And we were playing the Dogs, and my executive chef goes, do you want to know the scores for the footy? Because he obviously didn't know that I was listening to it. And he said it in a tone that I thought I could get away with saying he's going to tell me we lost, because it wasn't like, do you want to hear the scores? It was, do you want to hear the scores? He was prepping me for bad news. And I was like, I don't think I want to hear it. And he looks at me and he goes, out of respect, I don't think you want to look it up when you finish. I think I need to tell you, you need to absorb it, you need to move on.
And get it out of your system and move on.
Yeah, exactly. And I went, okay, obviously already knowing the result. And he said, yeah, Isaac Smith missed it after the siren, and geez, wasn't that an Academy Award performance? Pretending to be shocked there as I'd heard he missed it. And I went, wow, the Bulldogs next week. And he goes, yep, how you feeling? And I went, we're winning. We're not beating them.
Yeah, it was.
And we didn't. And we haven't been really back since, even though 2018 we played as well. Dusty destroyed us, and then we lost to Melbourne.
Yeah, it was one of those weird things. We had to deal with Sydney the following week and got flogged in that first quarter. For me, I constantly pay the price for that particular game. I just got drive-byed by the ABC News as I was walking into the ground that night, and they asked my thoughts, and I was unfortunately beamed out to the nation at that pre-game, talking about how they've got players that are they've only recently come back from injury, they're a bit underdone, all those sorts of perfectly reasonably based comments that were basically proven right from quarter time onwards. It's just a shame that we gave away a 9-goal head start. But that was beamed across TV, and of course, as soon as that siren's... actually, it was because we cocked it up so much early on. There was plenty of time for people to start getting a bit of a run-up when it came to having a crack at me. So I was starting to get messages from about halfway through the final quarter, sending and people tagging me in all the post-ABC news and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, this is... thanks, all. We should have just pissed it away the week before. Because I knew, if we... I knew that if we were going to play the Dogs, we had the wood over them. We had the wood over them. They were in terms of the matchup, it was all right. There was no dramas there, and Sydney just pumped us in a single quarter, and that was it. Done.
Yeah, it was that entire premiership year is just extraordinary for many reasons.
Yeah.
Fletcher Roberts and Joel Hamling are premiership stars, and they honestly sound like AI generated names, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, Chat GPT, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, which is extraordinary. But anyway, extraordinary times, and 20 2018 came along, and I actually nearly got kicked out of the MCG that 2018 game, and I wasn't actually at the ground. I was outside it, coming back from a comedy show that I'd attended, not performed, attended. That needs to be key here. And as I've walked past and they had one of the screens set up, was when Dusty kicked that absolute ripping goal from the pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Where Bruce goes, of course he can, it's Dusty. And I've just yelled at the top of my lungs, are you... I'm not sure if I can swear, so I'll just...
Yeah, go for it, it's fine.
And I've just yelled at, are you fucking kidding me? Out of everyone that can do that, he's done that. And I've just yelled, we are fucked. Now, as I've done that, I've kind of heard someone go, excuse me. I turn to my left, and there's a woman with twins in a pram, and I'm like, okay, not the best judgment or time to do that. But
bad time, bad place.
He felt like a cheat code. And again, you lose that qualifying final. And again, I had no real doubt that Melbourne were going to get us. They got your boys the week before, I think, in 2018 in that elimination final. And yeah, it's been a stubborn, top up, and that's turned into a full blown
rebuild.
Yeah.
So I guess like as we cut to today's stuff, and then we'll start really zeroing in on you and the content and all those sorts of things. How are you feeling about? And we were discussing this pre-show, but how are you feeling about how things are shaping up for the Hawks, the Sam Mitchell regime, the current, and we're recording this in a vacuum, of course, but the current vein of form that they're in, really competitive, banking a few wins against, I think, the logic of a lot of tipsters and experts as well. How are you feeling about how things are going?
Yeah, feeling pretty good, pretty optimistic, actually. I never bought into the Mitchell and O'Meara trades were a bad thing. And I even look at it now. I think Jaeger's been more than serviceable for Freo in that mid-forward hybrid. And, I think Tom Mitchell's coming at worst third in, Collingwood's best and fairest. I think DeGoey's been great. Nick Dacos has been great. And I can't really find a good argument to state.
It's been a real team effort for him outside of that, but Mitchell will be ahead of that.
Yeah, exactly right. But if you ask me, would you rather the 28-year-old Tom Mitchell that is what he is now, or would I take Jimmy Worpel, who is averaging more contested possessions, more clearances, and more inside 50s? Tom Mitchell's a better player, but for what the Hawks need to do, I'm taking Worpel right now, which is the right thing to do. Would Jaeger be better served in our midfield or Jai Newcomb? Well, one of them's going to be our best our best midfielder round one next year anyway. So why not fast track that a little bit? Will Day's playing in the midfield. Our last two first round draft picks were both midfielders as well. I mean, you can't keep everyone, and sure, it mightn't have been, for the best trade, but Hawthorn won the trade by letting their youngsters develop anyway, because even if these guys were bad, and we were, second bottom of the ladder, because no one's going to be as bad as West Coast, and I don't mean that in a malicious way.
No, but there's a lot of circumstances for them beyond,
exactly
whether you want
right.
to talk talent and those sort of things, but when your team is so decimated that when you pick up a first round mid-year draft player and boom, within a week he's playing in the top level AFL.
Yeah. And led scoring too, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is extraordinary. So I looked at it as it's necessary. And even if we were like West Coast, if we were 2-10 right now and our percentage was 60 odd, it would still be the right thing to do, because we had to know. We had to find out. And I think, fortunately for us, the nucleus of what Sam Mitchell wants to do was already on the list. And then we had the top end talent in there. Mitchell's drafts, he's gone, okay. You look at the history of his draft picks. Josh Ward, okay, he's not in the side at the moment, but, he doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, exactly right. 28 touches and a goal at Box Hill. He's not a scrub. Connor McDonald just had a breakout game. Sam Butler is developing as a young small forward. We don't expect him to get 25 touches a game. Ned Long's going to be something. I'm not sure what that is in the Hawthorn system yet, but the kid's got talent.
Yep.
Jai Sarong, unfortunately, went through the myocarditis, so we hope that he's all right, and he's back at Box Hill at the moment, but we sort of saw him as a Gunston-type replacement, which, no pressure, Jai, because he's a superstar, my man Jack. And then this year's draft, Cam McKenzie looks like Sam Mitchell at 18. It's scary. The same number, the blonde hair, the way he moves, the fact he's still a little slow with the footy. So was Sam when he started, and that worked out well. And Josh Weddle, oh, my man, the Weddler, he's looking good down back. Henry Hustwaite, I'm a fan of. Pick 37, he's doing some good things at Box Hill. But again, more midfield depth that we wouldn't have if the other two guys were there. Bailey McDonald we've seen at the level, and Jack O'Sullivan and Josh Bennett's we haven't seen yet, but they're developing at Box Hill as well. So
that's awesome.
I think if you're not pretty optimistic as a Hawthorn fan, I think you're either very, very greedy in terms of success, or maybe, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, maybe you're just not paying enough attention.
That's fair.
Which is definitely something that can happen, because this isn't going to be linear. It's not going to be, all right, we've won 3 of the next 4, so we're going to play finals. There's going to be blips, backward steps, and we're going to get smacked.
Well, that's what happens when you've got youth.
Yeah, exactly right. But we're going to get to the end of the year, and I think, everyone that said some pretty stupid things about the way the Hawks have done their list are not only already wrong, but are going to continue to be wrong. It's a good run home, in my opinion. Some good challenges in there, some interstate trips, and some sides that we could potentially beat. And by the end of this year, we're definitely going to know who our best 26, 28 players are. And when you bring in 2 more first-round picks, we're going to get, at worst, pick 5, and we're going to get probably the second best key defender in the draft in Will McCabe under the father-son rule. I mean,
it bodes well, right?
The Premiership Cup might not be in the cabinet in 2024, but my God, we're on the right track.
Pieces will be in place.
Absolutely.
And obviously the Cam McKenzie one, the McKenzie one's obviously like there was a lot of just chatter about that one going into it, and this is where the Geelong Hawthorn sort of thing comes into play again. Of course, a lot gets said about Mitch Thorpe, for example, back in the draft all those years ago, and then Geelong picking up Joel Selwood afterwards, and of course all the parallels that were made with Jai Clark, who we picked up immediately after Hawthorn again. This year, being compared to Joel Selwood, so there was always, it's nice to see that he's come out and actually shut down all that stupid, speculation, and another curse kind of broken there by the Hawks. He's a gun. It's been really, really awesome to see him do his stuff this year, so it's boding really well. One player I do want to ask about, and from that kind of trade and draft period of last year, you picked up Cooper Stevens from Geelong. What are you making of him? Now, obviously, he had a bit of injury troubles when he was at the Cats, but I personally was very, very sorry to see him go. I had a lot of belief in what he can do. And there was a moment from last year, I don't know whether you saw it as a part of some of the packages that were put together when he joined the Hawks, of the moment he had when he was picked and was about to play his first game for the Cats, and he had his jumper in hand, and he was just sitting there at the bench,
just staring at it.
And like I just broke down in that moment, because like that's the sort of love and desire. And he had been through, I mean, there's obviously some players have had it worse when it comes to, injuries and all those sorts of things get in their way. But, he'd been copping it one thing after another, and he had worked his ass off to finally get that spot and deserved it, and it was awesome. He played some great games for us as well in that time. So I was quite disappointed to see him go. But what are you making of him since he's come across?
Geez, I was thrilled to get him. Well, because like you, I was a massive fan, and you spoke about things that he went through. He went viral before he even played a game for the gym pics that, which, let me tell you, he posed for. I know he's tried to say, I didn't know that a photo was happening, but Cooper, you don't look that good posing that well if you don't know there's a camera on you.
To be fair, he's a pretty good-looking rooster.
Absolutely. Mate, and I've said this since day dot. If I look like that, anyone could take photos of me for as long as
at any
they
time.
needed. Like, absolutely. But
there's no such thing as a bad pose for him or a bad angle.
Yeah, exactly right. And I don't know whether I respect him or hate him, or it's in equal measure. But he's had 2 concussions this year, which is a real shame. I went and watched the intra-club game, which we know don't tell us a whole lot, but he had a ripping first quarter. He had a don't argue on John Newcomb, which just does not happen. And I remember I was there with my mate Smithy, and we kind of looked at each other and went, "Oh, all right, this makes the Mitchell trade." You got to remember that was for Cooper.
Yeah, it was all part of the Mitchell
and
deal.
Pick 40. And Hawthorn fans were going a bit mental at the time.
Yeah, as Cats fans, it was basically a case of he was out for Ollie Henry to ultimately come in, and was kind of the swings and roundabouts for that. And so, as much as I was really keen on Ollie Henry and getting him with his brother, and knew that the skills and potential were there, it felt like still a big price to pay at the time. But Ollie Henry's worked out well, Mitchell's worked out well, and Cooper Stevens, I think, will, once he can kind of get a clean run at it. Concussions are not an ideal thing to have.
He's had a good 3-week run. He had 21 and kicked a couple a few weeks ago. He had 19 in a half of footy, which was a really good return. And he was one of the emergencies on standby last week, so I don't think he played and missed out on the sub. I think Cam McKenzie was their sub last week. But I don't know if you remember, but when Braden Preuss started at North and behind Todd Goldstein, and then he got the trade and then he went to Melbourne to sit behind Max Gawn, and we all kind of went, huh?
Yeah.
That's a bit weird. Cooper Stevens has gone from unable to break into a very fit Geelong midfield, and he's probably thinking, hello, Mitchell and O'Meara out. Let's slot straight in there beautifully. And he's walked into a midfield that's got Warple back to some of his 2019 form. Newcomb's already a star. Connor Nash has come out of nowhere and proven to be more than a competent player, I should say. We've just drafted Cam McKenzie. Will Day has become a midfielder now.
Will Day.
And it just feels like he's the next one up. So I'm not sure what to make of him, but he definitely is a talent. And from all reports as well, an absolutely ripping bloke, which is half the battle sometimes.
Yeah, yes. Sometimes they got the right qualities, but they don't have the right personal qualities, and that can be a real problem. And you hear stories of it around trade time and draft time, those sorts of players that maybe get looked over because they don't have the right, the dynamic, the gel. They're not the glue that you want to see. So, look, I'll admit the blow was softened for me when I actually found out after the draft that he was actually a Hawthorn supporter when he was younger. I'm like, all right, you dog, get out of here. but I think he's going to be a fantastic player for the Hawks, and I do hope, I hope he's not kicking a winning goal against us at any point, but otherwise I'd love to see him play 200 plus, and I think all the potential and the skills are there, so hopefully he can just get a good run out and he'll do really well. So let's pivot over to you and the content you make, because we've gone half hour plus and we haven't really waded too much into you beyond how did you come to love footy in the first place. So where does Daz Talks Footy come into the mix here? When did the idea come about to actually start creating content based on this sport? This amazing,
probably.
Beautiful sport.
Yeah, well, honestly, probably like the age of 15, and then I figured like, nah, I'm not, it would be cool to do, but I'd never thought I'd do it. Turned 16, left school, started a chef's apprenticeship because I thought that was what I was going to do, and thank God COVID took me out of that. I know some people don't really say thank God for COVID, and I understand why for an abundance of reasons, but from a purely selfish point of view, if COVID doesn't happen, I'm probably not sitting here talking to you, to be honest, because, as someone in hospitality, we got put on the job keeper at the time. I know I'm probably triggering some people with these terms, and from that time, but so we were getting paid to stay home. And for anyone that might be watching or listening and has worked in hospitality before, that the one thing that everyone's got in common is you hate being bored. Now, unfortunately,
it was a very boring time.
Being locked down is essentially a very boring way to live your life. And I was seeing a girl at the time, and that is like current partner now, and she doesn't mind me explaining the story this way, and she had a family member build the desk that I'm currently using now. So had the desk, but it's also got the book stand as well, so it's got the multi-levels, and I just remember putting my phone, leaning it up against some books, and so I think it was my brother had sent me like a Snapchat. This is how innocuous it started. He'd sent me a Snapchat, and anyway, I went to just do like a stupid goofy face back to him. And I went, hang on, that angle doesn't work for my head, but like that angle looks like, and then I went, because I'm quite a hyper fixating kind of person. And I went, hang on, this could really work. And then it became from, I recorded something that I never published of just me talking to a camera, looked awkward as hell, but I didn't expect perfection.
That's where every bit of content of any YouTuber, any podcaster, any of those sort of things, it always starts shit and then it builds up.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, all right, let's see if I can do this, because I'm not, and my missus will attest to this, I'm not a great personal delegator. So, if someone's paying me, not that anyone was paying me to do YouTube at the time, but with the hospitality background and, my parents had raised me to be quite intellectually independent, is if someone asked me to do something and I'd agreed to it or I wanted to do it, I would do it on my own. It would be, and if I needed help, I would try to figure it out instead of going to other people going, can you do this for me? So I was like, well, if I want to run a YouTube channel, I need to learn how to do it. I didn't know anyone that did YouTube. So what did I do? I went to YouTube and went, how to create a YouTube channel. Yeah, exactly right. So it was about 3:30 in the morning, because my beautiful partner's got a very good sweet treat business.
Shout him out if there's anyone
absolutely. Sammy Sweets on Bayside. You can get in touch with her via Facebook or Instagram. Fully customizable cakes, cupcakes, cookies, cake pops, dessert cups. Mate, she has got. If it starts with C, she bakes it. Let me tell you.
Look, I'm not often in the neck of the woods, but if I'm there, I'm going for it. So
absolutely. So out of our house, we're a registered kitchen. So before, when I say out of our house, people tend to go, "Whoa!" But no, it's fully registered. No stress there. But during lockdown, of course, because she was so busy, because everyone was just inside, sometimes people would go, well, let's mix this up a bit, or, Valentine's days were being spent apart. So, we want to send someone some cupcakes or something. So it wasn't unusual to be awake that late. And it was just, okay, this is, I already had a Gmail account. Okay, so what I'll need to do is set it up, and then I'll need to make a thumbnail. I need to make a logo. I don't know how to make a logo. I can't, I was that unaware of everything. I thought I had to draw it, and then I had no idea of Canva. I had no idea of this stuff. So it just became, if I learn it and then I don't want to do it, I haven't lost anything. But if I learn it and I do want to do it, what's stopping me? I literally had nothing else to do.
That's it.
At that point,
makes it a very easy problem to solve, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Want to do it? Have the time to do it? Great, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly right. Do I want to bake the 80th tray of cookies, or, do I want to talk about the trade period? Well, I know which one I'd prefer. I'm very sorry to my incredible partner, but I'm probably going to want to talk about the trade period, if I'm honest, if I've got that spare half an hour on my hands. So, yeah, it just became, learning Canva, doing this and doing that, because I knew that I would start. The advantage that I had, and I hope this doesn't sound as arrogant as what I think it might, is I didn't doubt the fact that I could talk footy.
Yeah.
That wasn't a doubt.
No, you've proven yourself so much throughout this show alone. For anyone who's maybe new to you, that you know your stuff. You're wheeling off the picks that some of these players are coming out. I've got, I could tell you every player on the list what number they are, but I wouldn't be able to get into the weeds with some of the details, equivalent details that you were providing a moment ago. It is it's a real in-depth knowledge. Yeah,
the footy nuffiness knows no bounds, as I like to tell people. But so that gave me a lot of confidence, because I was like, once I figure this out, I'm going to know how to talk. So that's going to be fine. But then it was like, all right, let's start small. What do I really want to talk about? And originally I was like, all right, who in the media gets the most clicks? Because I knew even then the best YouTubers were the ones that got the most views. So I was like, what's a Kane Corns-esque take that I could have at that time? And the video that I ended up recording and posted privately to make sure I knew how to do it, I never actually released. I don't actually remember what it was about. I've had a couple of people ask me, but eventually I went, let's see if I can write it out and then talk it out. Yeah, exactly right. And then I found out that I'm horrible at that. I love writing about footy. I'd done it previously for different platforms and such. But in terms of just camera, I found it easier to just pretend I was talking to someone. I don't really have a person in mind, but it's just, I'm imagining there's someone sort of sitting there and going, hey, what do you think about this? And my answer is essentially the video.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old equivalent of what you would always be taught when you're having a shot for goal. Pinpoint someone behind.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
it's look at that camera. You're talking to him. As I'm doing right now. But I guess I've got you, so it's a weird. No, but
I understand what you mean.
Here, but
yeah, and I was exactly the same. And the first video that I ended up putting out was about Jordan Dawson and how the Jordan Dawson trade from Sydney to Adelaide will not only benefit Sydney and Adelaide, and that mightn't have aged too great for the Swans, but I also had the angle that it would benefit Port, because if they could chase him and drive up the price, then they would have to make Adelaide pay more for him.
Pay a premium.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, that still worked out for the Crows, because he's now their captain and star.
Best player.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. But what I
Swans
found,
perhaps missed out on a flat. No. He could have been there, and that wouldn't have made a difference last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, they would have lost by 85 instead of what they lost by, so that's fine. But I found the recording part of it fun and everything else a grind. And like I say, because I'm such a hyper fixate kind of person, for better or for worse, I'd argue worse in a lot of cases, it just became wanting to learn and learn and learn and learn. And then we go from there, and I love doing it. It gives me the hospitality sense of self-discipline, because I want to upload on a Monday and a Wednesday every week throughout the footy season. Then it gets a bit looser as the off season goes on. But yeah, literally how it started was from a silly Snapchat from my brother that kind of made me go, well, if I held the camera here, The first thing I ever recorded was in portrait. I'm talking like I had no idea.
It's all.
Yeah.
I mean, look, works perfectly for your TikToks and those sort of things now, though.
Yeah, exactly right. And then it became, I've owned probably 5 mics. I'm probably, just testing out different ones. I think this one would work better. I think that one would work better. I'd had like boom arms that stank, and what ironically now is I'm probably on the second cheapest mic I've ever owned, and I've had it for a year and I love it. The stand I got for free in a garage sale, and the laptop that I've got now is my work laptop that we're talking on now. And I've always pretty much had a phone, been lucky enough in that case, and that's what I use to record. And everything on my channel, unless it's on my laptop like we're talking now, is just recorded with a phone, recorded with a USB microphone, and it's just me, essentially talking shit about footy, which is what I love to do, and it's how I hope the empire can begin and to grow.
And you're amassing a fairly decent crowd already in fairly rapid time. How has it been as you've seen that growth and engagement? Now, I think we're obviously talking a lot about the Hawks and that sort of thing, but as you highlighted with your Jordan Dawson content, you try to still keep it quite neutral in a way. And there's opportunities for the bias to slip out, but there's also plenty of very neutral content that is fascinating to engage with. And so, do you I guess, how does that audience makeup look for you? Do you feel like it's still predominantly do you have that Hawthorn core at the center of it, or is it still pretty reflective? I guess the content itself neutral.
No, I think there's definitely some Hawthorn there, because I'm very lucky enough to work with Talking Hawks as well, an alternative Hawthorn fan media platform. So definitely some people who knew me through Talking Hawks, which I started before the YouTube channel, were able to go, I think we enjoy what he talks about the Hawks. He's got his own YouTube channel. Let's follow there. And in my, I think 150 odd videos now, I've only done one about the Hawks.
Yeah.
Because I love the sport. I love my team. I want the Hawks to win. At no point do I ever go into a week thinking I hope the Hawks lose. But I find trying to talk about as many teams and as many facets of the game as possible is my point of difference. I know that I'm not going to be able to do, things like tipping videos as well as True Footy or Riles Macker is going to do, right? These guys have got 45,000 subscribers between them. They've been doing it for ages. And although I have tried it, of course, as you want to experiment with things, I know that if people want to go on YouTube and look up who experts are picking in games, they're going to go to the popular guys. Because of course they will. That's the nature of the beast. But I feel like my point of difference is I could just as easily go from why is the umpiring bad to what's a Carlton need in the draft to could this player be traded to, can Adelaide win the flag, and do those at a consistent enough quality that people will tune in when I do talk about their team, and then are invested enough to think, I wonder what he's got to say about this topic. So it was, because
we're all lying as fans of our own teams, but we're all lying if we're not interested when we hear and obviously just cited Carlton. Like the Carlton situation at the moment is a fascinating one, and so you want to hear what people have to say about that, regardless of where their allegiance might lie in the first place.
And I think there is something to be said that I think there's a lot of frustration with mainstream footy media at the moment, and for the most part, I believe rightly so. I think the balance between wanting views and actually going with your own views on a topic largely misskewed. So
it's the nature of all journalism and media, to be fair. So I mean,
exactly right.
As someone who works in games media on the side as well, I mean, that is like the written form, and that's kind of where I got my start. The written form is rapidly dying. You're either at the very, very, very top, which is still diminishing as well, or you're indie and you're doing it for the love of it. And that's kind of the nature of the beast there, and we're seeing it affect all sorts of media these days, and footy is not immune to that. But it's about clicks, it's about engagement, it's about sometimes controversial takes that you don't necessarily wholeheartedly stand by that get people in the door, or not necessarily don't stand by, but maybe you put a little bit of mayo on top just to. Those sorts of things help. Now, it doesn't have to always be that way, but there's also the other side, which is that really personable they tune in for you, the individual, not for the whole channel. Oh, geez, I'm throwing a team under the bus here, but like not the whole Channel 9 Footy Show team, for example. They're coming to you because they've built a love of you and the content, and they've aligned with your views at points, and it creates this dynamic. It's also in terms of actually interacting with the content creator as well. That's a lot easier as well, and it builds this affection. It's why you see the likes of Caden McDonald, for example, who's one of the biggest there is within the content creation scene. Well, he's now you start seeing him pop up on the AFL website from time to time. Exactly. He hosts bits and pieces because that platform. No, it's not just because he's big. He got big because he built a community. People knew, it's you've got to nurture these things. You've got to engage people.
Exactly right. And I think there's a lot to be said that the relatability. So the way that I remember explaining it very early on when I started a YouTube channel is I never claim, and I never will, and if I do, feel free, someone, if you see me on the street, to slap me senseless for this. I'll never claim that I know more footy than someone else, or I'll never claim that I'm 100% right, or I'll never claim that yada, yada, yada. But what I will claim is that I'll work harder than most footy fans to make content or to make my point clear. Exactly right. I believe that my point of difference to other footy fans is not my prestige or ego or image or anything like that. All it is that I am willing to somehow find time in my day to put a camera in front of me and just tell you what I think. Now, is that going to be for everyone? No. It used to really bother me when I was really, really starting out, where like, say you hit, say like 150 subscribers.
Yep.
And man, like even now, if I, sort of about every 50 subs, I still get that this doesn't feel real feeling. That still exists. I know 1250 for some people might seem like a lot, and for some might not seem like much. But for me, every time that number goes up, it still doesn't feel altogether that real. But if it ever went from, say, like 150 and then the next video comes out and it went to 149, like it was heartbreaking.
It cuts through you, right? Yeah.
Like it made me go, oh, they hate me. And that's not what I wanted, because I can deal with being, liked, respected. It still makes me feel weird on the inside because I'm 25 years old and an idiot, but can't really handle positive emotion, clearly. But And there's something to be said about disagreeing with me. I love when people get in the comments and disagree with me with reasons. Now, I don't want people to get on my comment section and go, Daz, you're a fuckwit.
Yeah. But if you want to engage,
I'll probably agree with you, to be honest. But but if you go, I think of the infamous Kane Corns, Tim Taranto 150th comment, right? Is if I did a comment like that, but not that I would, but I would much rather people go to me and go,
he's not even in the top 200. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, but I'd much rather people go, what are you talking about? He's top 50 because of A, B, C, D, and E. And you're already my friend. Like, we disagree because that's what's happening. But you're already like one of my favorite people because you're willing to have a conversation. Yeah. That's all I want. I want reactions to the video because I want you to react, firstly, to the thumbnail and to the title, so you'll click on it. And then, as I'm talking, I want you to react to it. Now, if that's a positive reaction, which is what I'm going for, because I tend to think I'm pretty...
Well, you're not trying to upset people.
No, but yeah, exactly. I don't click the record button and go, who and how can I piss off today? But if you go and look at a take and go, geez, I think you've got that one wrong, I'd much rather people go, you got it wrong and this is how. And then I'll read that comment because I read all of them and react to most of them. Again, if you don't really give me something to comment back to, I'll just give it, the subscriber.
The thumbs up or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, the thumbs up, yeah, and I'll just, move on from it. But, if you come to me and go, I disagree for this, this, and this, like, you're already my mate. I love that. I love the fact that, because all we want to do, we do it at work, we do it with our friends, with our family, we do it at every dinner party. We just talk about sport. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just the person that hopefully can create a footy conversation. And I think I can do that in anywhere between sort of 8 and 12 minutes on the most part about a particular topic, but do enough topics throughout the year to keep most footy fans interested.
Keep it fresh and engaged. Yeah, it's one of the real tricks, and it's certainly something, like, I guess, speaking for myself on the Hoop Show side, obviously we are very Geelong centric, and that is certainly part of the MO. But at the same time, it's something that I'd love to be able to do more of going forward, is talk about. And again, that 8 to 12 minute format, and obviously there's YouTube algorithm stuff that kind of underpins some of that as well. But more of those shorter form conversations that aren't about the Cats necessarily. And I'm sure there will be from time to time. But Ben does a fantastic job of that. He carries the ship for the most part, and then lets me prance around and do this little prestige puff piece. But yeah, I mean those sorts of things. Like I'd love to do more of that sort of stuff because it challenges people sometimes, and especially if you do have an audience like we do, which is geared towards one team. It challenges people's perspectives. It challenges your own too when the comments come the other way. It gets you to think about it, and that's, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a teacher, so like I am all about challenging your own perspective and actually thinking a little bit more deeply about things, and waiting to hear what people have to say, because it gets you to think about things in a different way. It's all super important, and it's something we can do still through this footy lens.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about emotional maturity as well as content creators, because you spoke about you being a teacher. Obviously at halftime with the Oz kickers run around on the grounds and such, and we see it, whether you're at the ground or on the TV. Well, my dad used to run that for Etihad Stadium on a Friday night for AFL Victoria, and because back then the Oz kick system, before there was a bit of an overhaul, was kind of not really an afterthought, but people didn't really think about it as much. So when they had a shortage of volunteers, well, my dad had 2 footy-loving kids. So Friday afternoon, pick us up from school, and, we would go. So I was 12, 13 years old, effectively telling adults what to do. So if one of them disagreed with me or, tried thinking, you're a 12-year-old kid, who do you think you are telling me what to do? Yeah, that pretty much taught me that if people were going to disagree with me online, it's not like I was going to respond with, yeah, well, your mum, or anything stupid along those lines. It's as simple as, well, are you creating a conversation? Yes, cool, let's have a chat, whether you agree or disagree with me. Yeah, or are you being a prick, in which case I don't really need to emotionally invest my time. I then went to hospitality, and anyone that's worked in that sector can tell you that people will disagree with you for fun just because. Yeah, I mean,
let's use the opportunity to address the whole customer's always right thing. That is wrong. That is factually wrong.
Yeah,
and I've never worked. Well, actually, no, sorry, I've briefly worked in hospitality, but it's wrong. It's just straight up.
Yeah, and it's only half the saying. That's what I don't know why we're turning it into this, but I'm just going to say.
No, let's lean in.
The actual saying is the customer is always right when it comes to personal taste. That's the saying. So if someone walked in and wanted an ugly bag and said, do you think this is a beautiful bag? You would say yes, because you wanted them to buy it. That didn't turn into, you are now effectively my slave because I'm paying you to sit in my restaurant, right? That's not, exactly right. That's not how it works. And then from COVID, post-COVID, and part of my job now is I train adults into getting job skills. So that's responsible service of alcohol, kitchen first aid, and food safety handling. So nearly everything that I do, or everything that I've done basically throughout my life, has been creating conversations with people and creating reactions from people, whether that's, obviously in the hospitality industry or with YouTube now. So I never thought that, going to watch St Kilda and Carlton in a random 2011 game at Etihad Stadium would make me into hopefully a well-rounded content creator. But, there we go. And geez, mate, I could bore you with some stories from that day. My God, you learn some things about some players and some people.
Oh yeah!
Holy shit!
100%. And like one of the other cool aspects that I don't think it will ever be. Well, I mean, a bit like what you were saying with the subscriber counts, and obviously there's the good and bad when that trends up and down. But like, there's so many positives around that, and seeing new people come aboard and getting to engage with new people. One of the other really awesome aspects is getting to meet and interact with other people in this space as well. I mean, the two of us chatting for the first time today, and the myriad of other interactions you get to have along the way. It is awesome to get to network with these people, to learn from these people, develop your skills. It's awesome. And if nothing else, there's the social component, which is just really, really awesome as well.
Yeah, and what's cool and what such is a magnificent, refreshing difference between this and, network television is, if you're on, pick a channel. If you're on Channel 7, you're doing everything you can, not only for people to watch Channel 7, but to not watch 9 and 10, at different. Yeah, exactly right. I'll pick another channel. But if someone's watching my channel and then we have a collaboration and they find your content, it's going to be very rare for people to drop me and only listen to you guys. It usually becomes they'll watch both. It'll be, I've watched,
and eventually some tough calls have to be made eventually when it gets to a point. Right. But
exactly right. But at the end of the day I'm not competing with you guys to get people. I'm not competing with, Peps from the Lace Out podcast has been amazing to me as a collaborator. Pommy in Oz is an amazing man and an amazing collaborator as well. But I've never felt like I'm competing with those guys. I'm competing with me.
Yeah.
Because if I'm good enough and my content's good enough, they'll watch me regardless.
It'll hold up on its own regardless.
Exactly right. Regardless, if someone from Pommy and Oz, watches that video and then I'm in there, I'm in the suggested or whatever, and they click on me, it would have to take something pretty extraordinary for them to go, well, I'm never watching Pommy again. I'm going to watch this guy. It will be, that was pretty cool. I might give his video a like or hopefully a subscribe and all those good things. And then the next time I pop up in their subscriptions feed or on their
they're inclined to click straight away without thinking too much about it.
They'll have a click as well. And that doesn't denigrate from other creators. And that's why I love this so much is if I can get my viewers to someone else, whether they've got more or less subscribers than me, it does not matter at all. That it's a win for footy fans who are creating content. It's not like I need your channel to shut down so mine can thrive.
Yeah,
I'll make it thrive if I have to, and that's what I want to do.
It's a hard work thing.
But setting your house on fire is not going to make mine worth more. You know what I mean? So
totally agree.
It's a beautiful bit of social interaction and collaboration that, if I'm being honest, has made this so much fun.
Oh, it's. I wish I had more time to be able to throw at it, and that's a good thing I've got Ben to kind of compliment me here with this stuff on the Hoop Show side. But it's one of those things. Like if I could get the full 8-hour working day to just sit down and content create footy games, both it's the dream. So one day.
No, one day. No, I'm with you, and that's why I'm very grateful that I've got a partner who's building her empire as well. Not necessarily in content creation, although she's on social media and such, but she's building her empire through her business. I'm trying to build mine through mine. She's infinitely more successful than I am at the moment and a genuine superstar. But there is something to be said that the people closest to you, really are your number one fans as well. So if there are any content creators out there or people that are thinking about it, my advice to you about getting started is just start. Because if you wait until you think before you start, you're not going to start.
Well, you don't like we said before. The first piece of content you put out will be some of the worst things that you've probably ever seen. But that's how you learn. You have your mental debrief after that. You go and see what other creators are doing, and you start to pick up little tricks. As you said, first things. Sometimes the equipment. What are you using? Well, that you start to I can improve this if I change this within my environment. It makes a better sound, etc., etc., etc. There's a mechanical component just as there is the skill set side of things as well. So there's so many different facets to this thing, but there's always opportunity to grow and improve.
Yeah, and if you've got people in your life, future content creators that you think might not be as supportive, then my advice to you, and it might sound a little bit shady, just don't tell them. Let them discover it organically, and by the time they've done that, you're already on your way. So if you've got people in your corner, awesome, but if you don't, just start it on your own.
Stops nothing.
And just exactly right. And just, if you do start it, we'll more than happily collaborate once you get off the ground. Absolutely. It's a very supportive environment. And if you love the game, we're already mates. It's incredible how quickly sports fans, even of opposing teams, can just walk into a building and just go, a Hawthorn and a Geelong fan, if we met in person and didn't know each other and we went, geez, mate, how shit's Carlton going at the moment? Mate, 5 minutes later, we're talking like we're best mates and known each other.
Going off and getting a beer and there's no dramas, and all of a sudden the Kennett curse and everything just falls by the wayside.
Exactly right.
So I mean, it's one of those things. And like earlier in the year, this very show, I was chatting to Nick Davis, who a bit of a heartbreaker for
that would have been difficult. Yeah.
And I said to Ben, it was I don't think I ever mentioned it on camera, but I certainly said it behind the scenes to Ben, like, you're eyeing this off, and let me guarantee to you right now, this is going to be, like, if you make this happen at any point, this is going to be the worst piece of content you'll have all year, because I will not be able to acknowledge him by name, and I hadn't done that until that moment until he sat, like, we were on opposite sides of the camera and we were chatting. I had not spoken his name until that point. Now I'm happy. Nick Davis, like, whatever, like, it broke down that barrier. He was awesome to chat to. It was one of the best conversations I've had on this show, and through, like, I've done hundreds of interviews at this point across footy and games and all sorts of things, and it was one of the very best I've ever done, because it challenged me as well.
Yeah, and look, interview, and I've been very lucky with Talking Hawks to, I've interviewed current players, Denver Granger Barris, John Newcomb. I'm going to forget guys, but our mid-season draftee Clay Tucker jumped on with us, which was great. I've interviewed Peter Schwab, and that was the most nervous I've ever been, just because he
Yeah, I
was
bet.
on. He was the coach of the first ever Hawthorn DVD or video, but VHS back then. Oh my god, I'm old.
No, I remember all that. I got
But
you covered by a few years. So.
yeah, that's right. But that was a crazy experience, and it's something that I would love to do on my channel more. But it's incredible how I wish I could go back to recording that first video and go, mate, it's going to be shit, but enjoy that.
Yeah, just soak it up.
Because you said you've got future goals. I do as well. I know that I've probably proven the footy nuffiness by now, or hopefully I have. But I'm a nuffy about basketball, American footy, and cricket. Now, the American basketball and the American football are team based, not necessarily league based, because your head would explode. Trust me,
it's insane.
I do an NFL podcast with two of my mates, and they very happily carry that show, because the thought of waking up at 2 a.m. on a Monday morning when I've got work to try and fit in 8 games at once is I can't. Oh yeah, sorry, I can't do it. Which is great, but I've got my teams, love my teams, and still love the sport, and that is hopefully going to be part of the empire as well. But you've got to start somewhere, and it's going to be better than you think it is, because whether it becomes your full-time job, whether it becomes your hobby, whether you only release one video and never do it again, you're not going to lose out of this.
No.
At all. There are going to be great things, whether you want to do interviews, you want to do content, whether one person watches your videos or 50.
Thousands, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a beneficial experience, and it really, really has. And again, it feels weird to thank COVID, but it got me started. So it's a very weird time for me.
That's awesome. I mean, there's got to be some good things that came out of that period. Personally, I pretty thoroughly enjoyed working from home, but there's a lot of people that absolutely did not, and it's great to hear that some awesome stories came out of it, including yours. As we start to wind things down a little bit, we'll kind of I suppose we've been focusing pretty heavily on you recently, but just to zero in on that love of the Hawks and some of those contests with the Cats over the years, you're obviously going to have some highlights. I'm sure 08 is right up there. I'm sure the Sean Burgoyne moment's right up there as well. But are there any others that really stick out, good, bad, or otherwise? Memories from some of those tussles with the Cats over the years?
Yeah, no, the rest of them are bad. Take those two out. Not great.
You mean to say you didn't like Jimmy Bartell kicking it behind after siren, or Tom Hawkins roosting one from outside 50? And
the Tom Hawkins one hurt. We came back from 52 points down to lose it after the siren. We could have just got smacked, to be honest.
Could have just rolled over and let it happen. But
it would have been fine, because I was ready to turn the television off, 14 years of age, and I was just like, you know what? They've beaten us again, but thank God it wasn't close. And then we kicked 3 in about 2.5 minutes at that point. And then it was when the belief switched. It was, we're going to get them. And then Selwood took a mark, and I don't remember who the player was that overextended a little.
Well, you had Poppy that tried a little bit too hard when it comes to the soccer out of the air. That landed in Mackie's lap. Mackie off to Steve. Oh, geez, I can't remember now.
Stevie J.
Stevie J to Selwood. Selwood to Hawkins. Done.
Yeah, back when we thought Ryan Schoenmakers was the answer to Tomahawk, and we used to put Gibbo on James Podsy Adley.
And Pods would feast on him as well.
Yeah. And it was a rip snorter. But actually, an underrated one that I went to was round 1, 2015. We smacked you that day. Luke Bruce kicked 6. And the reason why...
Yeah.
But the reason why I remembered it fondly, kind of with a smile, actually had nothing to do with the game, because at halftime, the guy in our row went to the aisle and proposed to his partner. And she said yes, great moment.
Good
and
start.
As they were getting the official photos taken, someone, you know how they go down the rows and sell the food and drink on the trays, the 4 and 20 trays, went straight over him as he knelt down. As she said yes, he's gone to get up. They've collided, and a mess everywhere. I don't know why that stood out to me, but it was a comical moment. And
that's a proposal, all right.
Yeah.
take with the good with the bad, and they copped a bad proposal in the end. So
Sickness and in health started real early. Which
yeah, the challenges are there. This is not the moment I imagined, and it's just got worse.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
here I am. I said yes, and we'll move on.
Handy. Yeah, well, last year was handy as well. Mitch Lewis being a little bit of a smart ass when he just took maybe a little bit longer than he should have to kick that ball into the crowd.
Enjoyed it, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't quite Lee Montagna bouncing it in the goal square against Brisbane when he actually wasn't moving. Come on, Joey, you're better than that. But yeah, that helps. But in a post sort of Kennett Curse era, beating the Cats is still great. The rivalry is still there, but nothing will come close to that Kennett Curse. It's because that was hatred for me. That were my formative years. I
it
say
was
to
the same
people,
for me, and they weren't my formative years, but it was still the same.
From 11 to 15, which I think we can all agree is really when a male's emotions are really at their best and most mature. Jeepers.
I deal with kids that age all the time.
It became just a burning hatred, and the 2013, it was almost like the excitement was still mixed with the anger. It was like, it was the fuck you element of winning rather than we're into a grand final, which is probably not what the moment deserved, to be honest. And as I move past that, I still want to beat you every year more than any other opponent. But I don't hate I don't hate the Cats until the ball's bounced anymore. Whereas it would be 24/7, 365 for a while there.
Yeah, I'd say I was at a very similar point for quite some time, and it is absolutely still the game that I look forward to the most every single year. The nerves are jangling no matter what the situation might happen to be.
Yeah.
There's a pressure valve that got released earlier in the year because I was feeling it like I'd never felt it before. Just earlier this year with the way we started in that first half, and obviously all the talk about the form that the Cats had been in, totally justified as well. And I thought, no.
0-4, here we go.
Exactly. But I thought if there's going to be a game that's going to bring it out of them, I sure as hell hope it's the Hawks game. But at the same time going, well, there's not many of them here from that period that are left. It's Hawk. Not a lot left that are actually there for like the real peak of that. It's pretty much Tom Hawkins, Mitch Duncan, really.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I relate this to the Kobe. I don't know whether anyone here's watched the Kobe and Shaq one-on-one interview they had to kind of settle their differences. But when Shaq left LA and Kobe said to him, "You wanted to win a ring before I did, didn't you?" And he obviously said yes. And he got pissed off that Kobe won the 5th while Shaq ended up on 4. That's how I felt during last year's grand final. I didn't hate you anymore. I still respected Geelong as a footy club. No way in hell did I want you to win that flag, though. Just being honest.
Yeah, you wanted the 4-3 scoreline to.
Yeah, exactly. But you guys won it.
We can bond over the fact that we left Richmond now at 3.
Yeah, mate. Mate, my missus and her family are Richmond fans. And let me tell you, it's all I've got because we're 0-9 against the Tigers since her and I have got together. Ooh. And that's AFL, practice games, VFL, and VFLW.
Yeah,
so we're
not travelling well.
Yeah, exactly. We can't do it across the board. So that needs to change. So I'm very happy that we left
it. It's only a matter of time.
At 3. Yeah, exactly right. We'll get them eventually. But yeah, and then we get into the off season and we look forward to playing again to see where we're at. And where we're at was really good if the game went for 2 quarters.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden
we went home.
Went home and the Cats exploded. And it was probably the moment that at least, well, as things currently stand, maybe saved the season for us. So we'll see how things shake out in that regard. I guess looking at both teams as well, I guess who's the Hawk that you just that love affair you've got with? Who's the current one?
Dylan Moore. Yep, he's my man. So the first thing that I ever put on Twitter, and look, I've got less than 300 Twitter followers, so I'm not expecting to get tens of thousands of views and stuff on my Twitter. But the first thing I ever
handle's
put
right
on,
above his head though. Go check it out.
Absolutely, yeah, please do, because I talk shit on there about lots of things, lots of sport things. Anyway, so yeah, if you could do that, that would be great. But I remember the first thing that I put on Twitter that started to get people to go, "Oh, I might follow this guy. He's got a good take." Was I campaigned pretty strongly for Dylan Moore not to be delisted at the end of 2020 because I loved him. He was wearing the 36 at that point, and he just had that little something about him, and I've loved him since. So Dylan Moore is my man. And we're at Talking Hawks sponsor John Newcomb, Denver Granger Barris, and Jazz Fleming, which is amazing. So I've got to actually speak to these guys and somewhat bond with them as well. So I've got a soft spot for those as well. But yeah, that little number 13 with a heart of gold, mate, that's my man. Absolutely.
if you could, I mean, you've already poached Cooper Stevens' office, but if you could go and grab a cat now and add him to the list, who do you reckon you'd go for?
Well, for talent, I'd take that quarterback he got down there in the 44.
Yeah.
It'd be handy because I can genuinely say that my favourite player who wasn't a Hawk in my formative years was the bloke that wore 44 before him. I loved Corey Enright.
Boris?
Oh, yeah. And again, I hated myself for it because he was a Geelong player, but I just loved the way that he played the game.
Well, that's the thing. Like the thing about Boris, and like you even see it, in his coaching days these days. He's no fuss. He'd go out, he'd do his job. He'd be one of the best on the field all the time, and then he'd just disappear into the wind. He didn't like there was no obnoxious rubbing your nose in it. There wasn't me time. It was just simple workman-like stuff, and it was awesome. I loved him for it.
Yeah, and we hated Geelong because he was so good, and he was a part of that. Matty Scarlett was the same. We couldn't stand him only because he kept stopping our blokes, which is a real pain.
And look, to be fair, I think he probably won a few credits with everyone when he punched Hayden Ballantyne. So
come on, Hayden, you're better than that. Well, he wasn't actually, and wore it, which was unfortunate for him. I mean, Jeremy Cameron's the easy answer because he fits every list in the competition. But someone of youth that I'd like to have at the Hawks, I think I'm a big Mitch Nevitt fan. I liked him out of the draft, and he's coming to the AFL, and he kind of gives you that there's something here about him, which I like.
Screams Nat Fyfe to me. Like he's got the height, he's got the weirdy sort of body that Nat Fyfe did at the beginning, but his hands are really good, and he proved it in the Adelaide game a few weeks back.
He's very good against the Dogs too.
Yeah,
I went. My love for you in the draft is starting to come true, which I like.
I think there's a lot to like about Mitch Nevitt. The kicking for goal seems to be a bit wonky. He's done it when it counts recently, so we'll ignore that. There's tons of potential with that bloke, and so I'm really, really keen to see it. And I think it's a fantastic pick on the youthful side.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it's a good number as well. Like, I'm big on this. I think there are blokes that really suit their jumper numbers in the AFL. So, Tom Stewart fits the 44. Whether that's a Corey Enright thing, I'm not 100% sure, but 44 just feels right on him. James Kelly fit the number 9 to me perfectly. Absolutely, but like no qualm with that at all. He just fit the. I can't explain why. There might be Geelong fans listening to this going, "What are you on about?" But it made so much sense.
No,
to
there's
me.
certain players and certain numbers. Like you expect a Geelong number 5 at this point, for example, to be a tall forward who kicks lots of goals. Like and obviously, I mean, even Trav Varco for the position he played had a pretty good goal per game ratio. So. Like there's certain players that fit and certain positions that are tailored to certain numbers at certain clubs, and it differs. You expect to see an Essendon number 18, for example, do Matty Lloyd's sort of stuff. Like it's.
And the other one for the Cats that suits me is like, because when I think of like 32s, Rashudo, Dangerfield when he was at Adelaide, and all that, but there's something about Brian Myers in the 30 that just makes sense to me. I can't again.
Yeah, that one's a little harder to explain, but I don't know. He's doing good stuff though.
Yeah, it just fits in. It just works, which is great. And I can't explain it, but Mitch Nevitt fills out that jumper. It makes sense. Don't change it. I used to say the same thing about Jai in the 44, and the 3 still looks wrong to me, but it works beautifully.
It'll grow on you eventually, I'm sure. But I totally understand. Some lighter ones, and I guess this is a bit more of the Geelong bias coming in, but I guess one of them played. One of them played for the Hawks, albeit briefly. Schoolyard pick, and you've got Gary Senior and Gary Junior in front of you. Which way are you going to go? And it's always awesome when we got the neutrals. So
Senior,
bring him back to the Hawks.
him and Dunstall together. Jeepers, we would have won every flag in the 80s. But no, my logic. And
you basically did anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. But my logic there is that let's say, for example, they're the best of all time in their position. Forget the argument. Let's just say Gary Ablett Senior is the best forward of all time, and Ablett Junior is the best midfielder. Right? I think the gap between getting one of the best forwards of all time is greater than getting one of the better mids. So I would much rather get 3 good ordinary mids kicking it to Gary Ablett Senior. Then Gary Ablett Jr. kicking it to a forward that's not.
The pool runs deeper in the midfield.
Yeah, which goes against Gaz Jr., which is probably unfortunate, but it's one of those occasions where you'd love to have pick 2. Just can't lose.
No, that's totally fair. You've already touched on a few examples, but from the Hawks, I guess for us Geelong supporters who don't necessarily follow the team as maybe for good reason over years of hatred and that sort of thing, but maybe don't follow the club as closely as certainly yourself. on that youthful side, who's someone that you feel like perhaps hasn't gotten the spotlight yet, but we should be really keeping a close eye on?
Geez, up until a month ago, I would have said Mitch Lewis. But he's kicked 59 goals in his last 22 games now, so I think he's kind of
tracking pretty well.
Yeah, I think he's breaking out of that mold. Jeez, we've got a lot of good young guys that I'm a big fan of that I've probably talked about. I mean, Will Day, but is he? Yeah. It's kind of hard for me as a Hawthorn fan to go, geez, who's underrated? But, you know, it's amazing to think that Lockie Bramble, who's a guy that not many Geelong fans would know, he's the 9th oldest guy on our list.
Yeah, and he's a young bloke.
And he's 26.
Yeah.
So, he's 25, which is extraordinary. You know, Tyler Brockman's the only kid on our list who's got kids, sorry. And he's 22. You know, it's extraordinary. But if we are picking
that, holy hell.
Yeah, but if we are picking a young star to get around, it's him, the new number 33, Tyler Brockman. This kid's got tricks. He's got some skills.
There's a skill set with that bloke.
Oh, yeah. There's a silkiness to him that just, you know, I know Hawthorn fans are like, is he that permanent small forward or can he move up the ground? He can do both. And he's
what would you like to see happen, though, with him? Would you like him to stay that gun small forward or...?
Yeah, I think so. I think Dylan Moore and Connor McDonald can be that sort of high half forward type. And if we can get Brocky 15 touches and, you know, a few scoring shots a game, he's going to light up this competition. And him, Cozzy Pickett, and Isaac Rankin, I think, are going to compete for a few Mark of the Years in the years to come.
And there's something to be said for those small forwards actually remaining there. I mean, we look at someone like a Toby Green, for example, who is just, I mean, one of the absolute best players in the competition. He made himself in that position. Obviously, he spent some time in the midfield, and certainly there's a, as my dog goes nuts outside, apologies for that. There's a break glass in case of emergency thing that GWS absolutely pulls with Toby Green. That okay, if we need it and we're having trouble in the midfield, throw him in there and he'll win a contest or two for you. But
let me put it this way: Yeah, well, sorry to interrupt, but, you know, Stevie Milne and Eddie Betts didn't really go into the midfield because they didn't have to.
Yeah, Stevie J as well. Like, it's just, Yeah,
he did us well in 08, Stevie. He tried to have 40 and win the norm on his own and didn't actually stay in his spot, which was good for us.
I'll get Stevie on board at some point and I'll have a chat to him about that. But for now...
How good's he going on Triple M, by the way?
He's having a great time.
He's extraordinarily good, Stevie J, and such a good footy brain as well.
Entertainer on all sides of the fence, so he's been good value there. It's been awesome to have you on board, mate. I guess as we start to wrap things up, we gave your partner's business a bit of a plug before, but where should people go if they want to check out all things Daz Talks Footy?
Yeah, just jump straight onto YouTube, and as it sounds, Daz Talks Footy, DAZ Talks Footy as it is. Kept it really, really simple. Tells you who I am and what I do in 25.
There's no confusion, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no ambiguity there at all, and I'll pop up straight away, and I'm. It's not a Geelong centric or Hawthorn centric or team centric, but if you're looking for the topics that you might see on your footy panel sort of shows, but delivered by a very passionate fan, that's kind of what I deliver. And whereas these radio shows need to go through 12, 14 topics in an hour period and don't really get to do a deep dive, that's kind of what I hope to do and intend to do. And everything on the channel's run by me, whether that's recording, editing, graphics and stuff. I've got a very good mate of mine, Mitch, who's done some magnificent thumbnails for me across the way, and I thank him very much for that. But the rest of it really is me. So, when I do promote things like sponsors coming on the channel or my very own Patreon, where I write and do videos as well, for just $5 a month, helps people support the channel a little bit more and can help obviously upgrade the empire, which is what I'm about. I do that because it really is me. So like asking for that support, it's not like me plus 4 people in the background who I never give credit to. It really is one guy out of his house who just loves his sport. And I'm pretty content with the fact that unless something miraculous happens, I'm not going to be in the mainstream media because I don't have the journalism qualification, and I probably won't be chasing that now. So in order to live out the dream, I am going to have to rely on footy fans, and I'm more than comfortable doing that. And if you would like to support the channel and check it out, by all means. I never tell people to subscribe unless they watch a video because it feels pretty empty. In my opinion, having something like, would you have 5,000 subs if only 100 people are watching your videos? Doesn't really make sense to me. So if you click on something and you like it and you'd like to subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. And I appreciate all the support.
Yeah, the content's fantastic, so I implore people watching and listening to absolutely jump across, check out the stuff, and then when you inevitably enjoy it, make sure to subscribe and tune in for more, because there's lots of fascinating content. Like I said, really neutral. As you said, you've only done really one dedicated to the Hawks specifically, but lots to consume about a whole range of topics. So absolutely check it all out. It is awesome stuff. And social media-wise, if people want to reach out there as well, where should people go?
Yeah, so the easiest way would be the Twitter handle above, I should say, for all your free social stuff. And I'm reasonably flexible with work, and I love my sport, so all sorts of sport stuff will end up there, as long, maybe with some polls and stuff. The guys at work are pretty loose units at times, so if we have sort of a workplace discussion, I like to take that
bring
to
it
Twitter.
online.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can't sort it out, we'll let strangers do it on the internet, because that's the best way to do it.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly right. Someone tried telling me once that strawberry was the best ice cream flavor, and I went, out of the three, and they went, no, out of all of them. And it's like, that's just collectively not true. So
yeah, factually wrong.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's
Thank you for playing.
boysenberry.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, were you
Geelong and Hawthorn can come together.
Is that your call as well?
Boysenberry, mate. The missus and I went to an ice cream shop only about 3 or 4 days ago, and the two flavors, mate. I had boysenberry with the apple crumble topping. Oh, yeah. That is my jam.
It is just.
Oh, it's so
holy
good.
Shit.
This was not on my bingo card in this conversation.
No,
but it's so good.
Oh, all right, good. Yeah, with kindred spirits, we got this sorted now. This is great.
Amazing. So yeah, all the support's appreciated, mate. And I thank you so much for having me on. And Geelong fans, I hope I've managed to convert you to maybe at least one Hawthorn fan isn't a prick. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. The proof positive that not all Hawthorn supporters suck, and hopefully the Hawks fans are saying the same about me. But anyway, we'll wait and see in that regard. Cats fans watching and listening right now, if you haven't already done so, please, and you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to The Hoop Show on YouTube. Lots of awesome stuff there that Ben and myself have been doing. Like I said, largely carried by Ben. He's a good worker like that. Good work, chat. And subscribe to Behind the Play on podcast feeds as well. There's lots of awesome content to check out across the podcast feed and the YouTube channel, so please make sure to subscribe. The support is huge. How are you feeling about the Hawks going into the remainder of the season?
Yeah, feeling good, mate. I think we're going to get another 2 or 3 wins. We'll probably end up with, pick 5, and if we can somehow get Archer Reid at centre-half forward, I'm going to be one very happy man.
Very, very nice. Cats fans, thank you very much, as always, for tuning in. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you next week.